Hello and welcome to the Miku and Buzz podcast. This is episode number nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
I don't know, guys. I think this is probably week
Uh,
30 or something like that
I
of the
think so.
month.
We've had a blip, and
Um,
we're getting through it. So I think so. Let's
okay,
continue.
perfect.
Just crack on. Who cares?
Crack on. So this episode's all a little bit about how hard is it to save and what are the best ways to go about it. So, Garrett, we obviously had a discussion of what we think this episode should be about. Change it up a little bit. Go back to financial because we've not done it for a while. This one's a little bit about is it worth basically putting tons and tons of effort in at work to get that promotion to push yourself to become the best at it, or worth just doing the minimum to then actually strive to do something else that you want to do on the side. I, I was just going to say, I think it's quite an interesting sort of idea. I think it'd be quite cool to see what your thoughts are or what you're doing at the moment.
It's interesting, and I guess it's for me. It's kind of like two things. It's it opens up like a floodgate of ideas, because if you are dedicated to work and then trying to strive a bit extra at work to get that promotion or to get that extra bit better at it, it does require that extra bit of focus and dedication to work, and you might be working maybe a bit longer evenings or starting early or something like that. And you certainly know people like that or experience people like that at work, and you see sometimes they do well and get those promotions that you're like, oh, kind of like you look back and you go, yep, well done, you've obviously worked very hard for that. And then on the flip side is like, yeah, imagine if you just transferred that energy into your own project, and if that was taking off. But I think that opens up another floodgate of ideas because or potential issues, I guess. It's exciting for me, I think. I think it's like that's exciting to think of, getting another side project on the go. But then again, to see that does take off and actually affects your work, then it's like, how do you manage both? And what happens if it gets to a stage where it's like maybe not enough to make your income of your job? So then you actually create double the risk because you can't support what you're doing and on the side, but then your job is potentially failing as well. It's interesting. Well, I don't know. What's your general thoughts on it? Because I've got a few more.
My general thought is obviously I think it down to personality or down to what you want in life. I think if you're striving to become the best, like say you're an accountant and you just want to become the best accountant and become chartered and stuff, and you just want to work your ass off in a company that you know that you can go up and there's good growth opportunities for yourself, why not? Or you're in you've become an apprentice and you've seen the growth that you've done from when you started with the company to 5-6 years down the line. You've completed your apprenticeship, you've got the qualifications behind yourself, and you're like, well, why would I move on? Because I know that if I do this for another 6 years, I could end up making X amount or stuff like that. I think if you're in these jobs doing that, whereas me and you, I think we've both finished uni, gone into a few different jobs, and I've probably maybe not seen. You've obviously had a bit of sort of like a not so much of a promotion, but like you've seen your pay increase, but that's just been like a sort of little bit of like obviously your work ethic and what you've done. They've been happy with it, but also you've had inflation happen. They had to increase it. Do you know what I mean? Like it was kind of like that was bound to happen. For me, I think purely in what I would like to do is obviously work my hardest, probably in the job I'm in now. I'm in sales. Sales is all about if you work your ass off, you reap the rewards because you get paid more.
Yeah.
Okay. But in the long term, in terms of that working hard, do you really see like a massive benefit? Maybe not, but I think the only thing I can think of it with that financial backing, if I work hard and get the financial, I can then have the money to then do the thing I want to do or put money into things.
That's true.
There's a balance to it.
It is very much a balance, and it's very hard. I don't think it's a yes or no answer. It depends on who you are and what you're motivated by. And I guess same again, if you're motivated by money, then working at a job and also doing a side hustle, loads of people do it, and it won't stop people who are dedicated at their job from starting something. We're not saying that you can't have both, but it's more like what is worth spending your most of your effort on, because obviously you need some downtime. That's how I'm approaching it. And then also, you mentioned, I guess you can go to work and work really hard and actually not, feel like you're working hard but not actually go anywhere. And, I feel like sometimes maybe I've experienced that. It's like you feel like you're putting in the legwork, and then sometimes you just maybe don't get rewarded for that. And then that's when you think, oh, I could just do something by myself and actually get rewarded for it more. So it's hard. But then same again, it's like, depending on what you're skilled at and what value you can provide to other people, that's where the money is. So at the same time, it's kind of like, if in a certain roles that you feel like, oh yeah, I should be at this stage, I should be making more, or I should be enjoying it more, or my work-life balance isn't correct, you need to be somebody step back and go like, oh, what value am I actually providing to the world? And I think of this as well. It's like, people who are quote unquote like successful financially, arguably could have provided more value to more people in the world, right? Because that's ultimately how the world works. It's like you provide value, then you can get money from it. And obviously there's different ways, people make money and stuff, but I guess fundamentally it's like you do X, you get Y. And it's like that's what value do you create with that process? So if you're not able to extract the money that you're looking for in your current job and what you're doing, or side projects or anything, it's almost like, is the value that you're creating not worth what you're doing? So I think of that a lot, and I think that's probably like the bare minimum, like as simple as I could make it to myself thinking about it. Because I look at my previous jobs that I've had, and I'm like, yeah, it's been quite heavily particularly like kind of sales focused, account focused, and sometimes I think back to it, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be, the value I'm providing is very much like obviously very valuable to companies that need that function. But at the same time, you look at all the other jobs in the world and you're like, is there more value there that you can actually build skills in and adopt and change, and then actually work in those fields that are more beneficial and you might enjoy more. For example, is like, I think about it quite a lot, is like, if you were to join like a profession, like a professional body, like if you were to become an accountant, like a lawyer professional, or a doctor or something like that, it's very structured process. And I feel like the value you provide to society is quite outlined. Like, what an accounting does, what a lawyer does, and what a doctor does, right? And that's not just the professions that are out there in the world, but then you break it down, you're like, all these other jobs in the world, like if I were to, you gave me your job title, Jamie, not many people would know what it actually involves. No. And it's kind of like, you break it down like that, and then you go like, oh.
Just to put it out there, my title for my job's a parts cleaning expert. Absolutely belter.
I saw your update on LinkedIn. I was like, that's not even relevant to what you're doing. Parts cleaning expert, like what?
I think they're trying to take away from, we're not a salesman, we're a solution expert.
Yeah, I get that.
So when I turn up to a place, I'm not going, I'm the new salesman for safety clean. No, I'm a parts cleaning expert.
I'm your solution to your problem sort of thing, and that's actually my job title. Okay. What I've said, Jimmy, does that resonate with you? Does it make sense?
Somewhat. Yeah. I mean, like, in terms of what I'm doing, I like, every salesman is trying to help find someone the solution to something. You know what I mean? So, but what you're saying about your sort of mythology towards this, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, and it's like, and I also think as well as I was listening to a podcast recently, and it's about how can you, I want to start a side hustle, and they're kind of like explaining, like, somebody's basically calling in, or that's their case study, and he's like describing how he's going about it as a process. And he has skills in certain areas that he's tested with, and he's like, he can teach, he knows about a certain topic, he can kind of do tutoring for children, right, as an example. But then it's like, how can he not tie his time to that directly, but also perhaps he's looking at he could do that and make X amount per hour before work or after work, and his time's tied to an X amount per hour. But how does he transfer that to not being tied to his time? And then also, can he use his other skills or build up other skills in his side hustles that actually help with his career as well? So my thinking is if you in your side hustle are like, oh, I want to sell XYZ products. A lot of people do sort of like drop shipping style things or little micro businesses selling stuff online. If you were to set up, you learn a lot about marketing. If you build a website, you do a lot of that, and you build up a lot of extra skills that you don't realize that actually you could end up, say that he is a teacher, you could end up changing your total career path to something in marketing, for example, and say that is, what happens if you do that and you're paid twice as much. So it's not only just, I don't think it's like a split, but it's like what you do in your side hustle can also help you with, or even your hobby, like that can even just help with your career. So yeah, I think of those two things, and it's quite interesting. But I guess I was gonna say it's just like I get why we think that, why we think, is it worth investing all your time in your job or all your time, or use some of your time, like do the bare minimum and get by, and like don't be a star performer. And maybe you can do both, but then it's like use your time that you do get back from not doing the extra part to starting your own thing. And that's very appealing. Like, why not? And that could lead to I can open up maybe a lot more doors for people.
Yeah, I think the big thing is like millionaires that are out there, they've not become a millionaire because they work for someone.
Mm-hmm.
The millionaires are the ones that have their own thing, their own business, their own company. They do something like that, or or they're in a company and they've managed to get up the ladder really quick, and they're earning the big bucks where they can end up have that sort of money behind them. But realistically, that person, even if you're working for them, you're never going to be as rich as the person that owns the company. So there's that argument of like, we've like, for both of us, we've both obviously talked about having our business at some point, enjoy the aspect of thought of that. And it's like, we probably should spend more time on ourselves, figuring out what we want to do, how we're going to do it, and testing different things, such as obviously the pizza business, which we need to obviously recap and get back into a little bit more, aka Gregor does all the work and the brothers need to help out.
Yeah, it's hard.
What I was going to say is, we're going to bring it sort of back round. So I've got a colleague who I've only literally just met today, and I faced a Teams call today, and this month he's already smashed his target. He's been in the company for 3 months. He's smashed his target every month, and this month he came out with a deal which was just like one of these ones that's just, you don't hear that often, and for within a 3-month window to have this sort of deal, it's incredible. However, from the grapevine, we hear that he's got a business, and it's within the oil, it's within the same industry. Don't know if it's family run, don't know if it's, if it's that sort of side of things, but he does run some sort of form of business. So I find this really interesting. I was thinking, this guy's, either started a business within an industry, okay? So he's got a hold of connection, knows a load of people, and he can just, use connection. Because once you use one connection, that connection is willing to give something else, and it just builds up like that. And before you know it, you can have, people just, okay, the next month I'll get in touch with these guys, and, constantly have sort of deals sort of lined up. And I just thought, that's genius. Get into a business that that needs other stuff. Any manufacturing business needs to use other people to get that business up and running. Get into the industry, make something, do something really well, get to know people in the industry, and then join a company that needs a salesman. Sell it to them. Oh, mate, blah, blah, blah. Aye, great. Sign that. Perfect. Obviously, you have to be worried about it. You make sure you join a company that's worthwhile, and they're not just going to Annoy your friends. Oh mate, why'd you get me to sign up to these guys? They're rubbish. Safety Clean have to say, not like that. They're quite a good company, but I just found that really interesting. I'm like, this guy's done the opposite. Obviously, he's created a business and then gone back to work.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then, you know, I don't know if the argument there is like, okay, maybe the business's setup is not as big or doesn't make as much money as, or clearly maybe doesn't need to work on it all the time or something. Something there's obviously off that he doesn't need to do stuff like that.
Yeah, true, because you'd be just full time in your own business.
So he's just like, yeah, almost like reverse engineered being able to jump in a role that he knows everyone and can basically rinse the market with, and get the benefits of what your job has, such as the commission stuff side of it. So that's, yeah, again, it's quite smart. And it's like, maybe him choosing maybe he was looking for a sales job and he's like, oh, you wonder if that was his whole tactics, doing this approach. But I don't know, it sounds quite smart. You kind of think, oh, where do I have connections? And then you look for a job around that. I guess that's what's good, like special about sales, is like if you have connections in certain markets, you can certainly make a lot of money.
Yeah, 100%. So obviously, bring it back round to the key sort of question is what are you doing at the moment? Would you say you're striving to be the best at your work, or working minimal to strive to have something else?
Yeah, it's a good question. For me, it's definitely more work at the moment, more focus, and that's pretty much because that's where I find most of my focus going. But at the same time, yeah, I do think of this question, and it makes me go like, I could just don't have to work that extra half hour, or I could try and feel bad for doing it, but then you're like, oh, I feel like I could just kind of finish up and spend some time on other things. The other aspect is you've got a lot of time either side of work, busy with other stuff in life, but at the same time, it's like if you just get up a bit early and try to crack on with other things, you might be able to start something that runs in the background or helps generate that wee bit extra income. Yeah, there's loads of ways. And I'm like, part of me, you think, you're working away and you think of these things and just like, you get the urge just to be like, just do it. Like, just get on it.
I think it's like,
yeah,
there's so many variables to life at the moment as well that influence what you do.
Yeah.
Such as partners. I'm sure as yourself, Gregor, I've recently been into a relationship. It changes the dynamic of what you get up to. Even when you finish work, you're like, oh, well, what are you up to? Or what are we doing?
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And
I think sometimes, part of me goes like, you can do that, and I think of people maybe not running businesses on the side or other side projects, but a lot of people have other lives outside of work, and it's like you end up doing you do sports, or you do or maybe a director in the company's working really long and at the job, and it's like a lot of these people have families and stuff, and I think it's just about being a bit more structured. Like today is the day that I'll be working on this. Let's plan ahead. Let's plan the week, and then you can actually do more in that respect, rather than like, I feel like sometimes it's very reactive. I find that lately you're kind of like, oh, what we're doing today, what's happening. I haven't really, you structure your day at work, but then outside of work, you're kind of like, okay, I feel like a cycle. I feel like doing something like this, and then you just do it on the date.
I think
that's hard to get into routine, I guess.
100%. I think health's a big part of it. Like, obviously adding to the whole conversation of obviously work and ethic, and even just having there'll be people out there that are like doing anything on top of work. Some people go to work and struggle to even to get through that, and I think a lot of it's down to health, because I know myself at the moment, like I'm probably not the healthiest I could be at the moment. I should be probably exercising a little bit more. Do walks and stuff like that, and obviously did cold water swimming the other day, which I'm hoping to do a little bit more of. But like physically getting the heart rate up and going for a run or doing a fitness class is something that I keep thinking about, and it's obviously working at David Lloyd's, like hard to go anywhere else. I keep thinking about it, but I'm like, Jimmy, it doesn't matter where you go, just you're not doing anything at the moment. And I'm like, so I can get a membership at David Lloyd's in Aberdeen for £79 a month, okay? Which I'm like, that's quite expensive, you know. See if I only go like twice, so like say actually say I went once a week, that's quite an expensive time to keep going. Like if I'm not doing it, you know, minimum twice a week, which and then I go like, how am I going to fit it in? But then I also go the balance of that exercise. Say I do pay £79 a month, I think I'll be forced to go. I'll be like, no, I'm paying £79 a month. Like Jimmy, you have to go once a week. You know, minimum once a week. And when you do go, make use of everything. Use of all the facilities. It also means I can play tennis. Like you see, you came to Aberdeen, I can get you in, and we can go do stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
Uh,
um,
it's a balance. And I guess it comes down to the question that we're asking is, you know, what's your main focus to get? Is it like, is, you know, the focus to basically progress further and make more money? Because ultimately, I guess that's kind of like what you're trying to do. And then I guess, you know, the idea is that if you progress further at work, there's more stress and maybe more angles to that.